Yellow. Yellow. What's up, folks? Oh no, my computer's disconnected. Welcome in, everybody. How you doing? Don't worry, I will I'll get that fixed in a cool second. Welcome in. Thank you for coming. We've got a little show today. Obviously, with a new Inside Star Citizen coming out yesterday about Pyro, I decided, why don't we talk a little bit more about Pyro? Because we haven't had enough Pyro already, right? It's only been 6 years. I wanted to do a little comparison because I saw a couple comments on this episode of Inside Star Citizen, and I was like, what? You get people coming up in the comments on these videos saying, hey, same thing, copy pasted, same missions, same this, same that. And during this Inside Star Citizen episode, we heard one of the most important things gameplay related that we've heard this entire year when it comes to Star Citizen. And I'm going to make a video about it, but I wanted to also focus on it today during stream. So thought we'd spend a little bit of time, about 90 minutes here. It's not going to be a super long stream because we will be following this up with a cooking stream, doing some Turkish meatballs today. Oh, they're so good too. It's called kufte, and you guys are going to get the full scoop on how we scoop the meat and make them into balls and fry them real good because they're tasty. You actually include bread inside of the meatballs. Little Turkish secret. So if you want to stick around for that, we'll be doing some cooking and eating and chatting like we do after this stream. But today, it's all about Pyro. And we're going to do a preview of Pyro and also a little bit of a comparison to what we have in Stanton so that we can actually make the call. Is Pyro actually any different from what we're expecting? So let me fix this so you guys can actually see my computer screen. I'll put this up here so we can see if it works. And we'll get started in a second. Listen to music while I do. Enjoy. Okay, unfortunately, this might be on my computer side. This might be OBS problem. So let's see if I can, please come on, work with me. Let me see if I can just, yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. I was really worried I was gonna have to straight up close the whole program, which would have sucked. Whenever you guys are asking about music, by the way, this is where I'm playing it from. This is why I can't share it. This is just on my computer. So I'm sorry about that, but I will get these uploaded at some point to YouTube Music so I can start sharing my playlists with you all. All right. So before we get started, I'm going to say my hellos because I love y'all and I appreciate you showing up here, especially in the midst of a Star Citizen Live. I know there are a couple different things you could be doing right now. Big thanks for being here with us for some tomato goodness. Vastin, welcome. Happy mod powers to you, from what I've heard. Sounds like you getting the hammer to help us hold down on Twitch. Thank you. It's always nice to hear that we got a little bit more help on Twitch. Twitch B. You guys are good people. We don't actually have that much trouble with Twitch. It's YouTube where we get the rowdy bunch, but much love. We know you're always here helping us dance. Helping, the heck is dancing? Helping us stay real, helping us stay happy, helping us dance. So congratulations to you, buddy. Echo, good to see you, dude. Vastin, or Drazen, welcome in. Jester, Space Marine, Azrin and Tiny Home, good to see you guys over on YouTube. Shifty, my friend. Azon Keel in the chat, my brother. I hope you're doing well, Azon. You did hear meatballs. We're going meatballs today. We're going meatballs to the walls. Vargan, good to see you. Morning for all of you over there, and good evening to us here, and whatever you ask the rest. Well, good evening to you. It's always nice to be able to say a fellow good evening. Double ban for wearing 2 socks. Hey, I took my socks off. They're gone now. I do have these socks over here, though. They're ready to go, ready to be marketed. I believe these are both right socks, right? These are both, yeah. So they just both say toes. Toes instead of my toes. These are our socks, though, from the store. Super stretchy, super comfy. They got your favorite tomato on your feet. And when you actually get the real socks, it says my toes, so you never forget. They're very nice socks. I know we're getting into the cooler months here soon. And for those of you who are actually down on there, on the poor southern hemisphere, I heard that's a thing. I thought it was a myth, but there apparently is a bottom half of the world. I don't understand how that's possible when we're all on disc, but if it's pretty cold down there and you want to keep your toes warm, a little sock not only helps you, it helps us. Thank you for the support. Assuming I have 2 legs, let's use 2 socks. Don't know what kind of dress code y'all crayon eaters have over there, but come on. Dude, if you're eating crayons, do you really need socks? Crayons keep your blood warm. YouTube is what needs the help. Yeah, but nobody wants to spend time on YouTube, right? We just go there to watch videos. It's like you don't know me anymore. I'm going down a path you can't follow. What are you, Anakin? No, sorry, that's Padme. She's saying that to Anakin, right? Stop saying crayons like that. Crayons. Does exclamation point toes just make the bot say toes instead of dropping the socks link? Exclamation point toes in the chat, folks. Yeah, it's crayons, not crayons. Suckers. Y'all got any more of those crayons? What is a crayon? You'll never know. Okay. Enough madness. Enough of that nonsense. We are here to talk about... Wait, hold on. Am I out of focus? Do I look blurry? I looked blurry there for a second. All right, now we're good. Okay. Friends, my good people, my tomatoes, my gardeners, my members, hello. We are here to talk about Pyro today. And it's mainly because there's a lot of questions and a lot of accusations, maybe, that Pyro is a copy-paste of Stanton, that it's the exact same. But there's also more to Pyro than just Pyro. It's 4.0. And for anybody who was around for the switch from 2.6 to 3.0, you remember that even though we had the exact same space, basically, still the area around Crusader, the game itself changed. Things fundamentally changed. And that's not to say that Stanton itself is going to fundamentally change, but I think Pyro is offering us a preview of where the game is headed as those changes then get translated back to Stanton, much like they did with many of the planets that we got in after Hurston. So today we're going to do a little bit of a preview, a looky-loo, a look-see at Pyro from today, from last week, from earlier this, December, from all the way back to CitizenCon of last year. And maybe even further, I might do a little bit of look-ins at Reputation, because that's also a big part of Pyro. But we're doing a preview with the new information we've gotten, the new ISC we just saw this week, and just in general, is somebody... Whoa! Hey! Oh. Nice block. Ow!
It's
what?
Luna's birthday!
Huh?
You didn't say happy birthday, Luna!
Nobody told you to shoot me.
I know, Luna Maria's birthday, so this was revenge.
Revenge? I haven't gotten...
That was it.
That's gonna get included. Hey, include that in the video. Absolutely.
Luna Maria's
Madness.
birthday.
Happy birthday, Luna Maria. Are you on the Discord? We have a role for our birthday folks on the Discord. Can I add you to that? Sheesh. These nerf attacks, man. What kind of world do we live in now? This must be a no-go zone. I don't even know where I was. Shall we all sing happy birthday to Luna Maria? Wait, hold on. Your birthday? Oh, that's right. Yeah. No, you're going for the birthday, the road trip. Yeah. After the wedding. And the honeymoon. What a freaking couple weeks. I forgot again. You have quite the August. I hope it's not too hot. I hope it's a good August. I mean, besides like all the good things, you know, like a good weather-wise August. Happy birthday to you. Do I have any birthday songs here? Do you have a birthday song? Happy birthday to you. I don't have any birthday songs here. I'm pretty sure it could get copywritten for this. Birthday, dear Luna Maria. Happy birthday to you. Cheers. Not too far off from Mrs. Tomato's birthday. Okay. Slice back into the video wherever we were. We're going to talk about the differences of Pyro to what we had based on also the changes coming with 4.0, because obviously there's more to it than just a new geographic location. So first we're going to watch Inside Star Citizen from yesterday and talk about that. It's a very important little bit of information that they have in here. Then we're going to start to go back in time as we do. Cheers. Hope you have fun. Welcome in. Thanks for joining. Let's get to it.
There's a lot you can say about the upcoming Pyro system.
Oh.
It's dangerous, obviously. It's lawless, certainly.
Sure.
But it's not all just chaos and carnage completely. It's also people just trying to make their living where they can in a place that's challenging and pretty...
Nonsense. I have already heard that the only people who will be there are griefers. I was told that emphatically. It is known.
different from the adjacent Stanton system. From repairing your neighbor's generator to supporting the nearby farmers, there's much you can do to be a social and upstanding citizen for Pyro's prosperity.
Upstanding with the skulls hanging. No, yeah, of course. And for the record, I'm not reacting to this. I've already watched this whole thing. I just want to talk about it. God, that looks nice.
So the planets of Pyro are different from Stanton in the fact that they all have to deal with the Pyro star system being at the end of its life cycle, emitting huge amounts of solar flare radiation, and we have to consider, like, what is that actually doing to each planet? Naturally, Pyro 1, closest to the sun, is going to be the heaviest influence of the solar flare firing off. So how do those people live? But the people furthest away from the star on Pyro 6 are going to have the least amount of radiation, but it's also going to be super cold at the same time. How do those people live instead?
They don't.
In Stanton, you have...
It's honestly, it's quite interesting that Pyro has such a heavy influence from the star itself, from the fact that it is a frontier system. Like, for the first two systems that they've done in this game, make no mistake, these are wild systems. Like, Stanton itself is crazy. Four super Earths, I believe they call them, or at least Earth-like planets, all with populations, all with cities, and tons of companies and commerce going on, is not normal. Okay? Even, I mean, obviously in real life, we can't even do that in our own star system. But like in the overall Star Citizen universe, that's not normal. So then you go to the complete opposite of like Pyro, which is all frontier, super dangerous, with its star going crazy and with bunch of crime and like a kind of place that's all limited by the people who are there rather than a government or at least a corporation that's overseeing everything. That's also pretty wild. I think there's more of that in this game than there is of what we're getting, but Pyro is still pretty extreme in that sense. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do, as they bring in more star systems, 3, 4, 5, however many they can get to within the next 5 years, let's say. How many of those are going to have something as unique as what sets these systems apart? Because it's a ton of fun for them to introduce these systems with the ways that they work. But, you know, the Nyx system is just like there, you know? What's going to be the theme of them introducing that and being all excited about marketing it? It'll be cool to see. Fun to see. Maybe a bit annoying to see.
Huge landing zones, which are very protected, very safe, lots of security. In Pyro, there's no such thing. You're very exposed to the danger. Everything is a lot more spread out. People aren't huddled into landing zones. They have the entirety of the system to roam across.
Oh,
There are no
okay, we're a bit,
central
hold on.
sources of
My sound is all off. I don't know if that's messing up for you guys, but I'm gonna boost it on the digital side so I can turn it down on my end.
power in the Pyro star system. It's all decentralized, and each outpost has its own different
Okay, that did not
identity
help.
and what it means for you as a player. As you go to these different places, should you be aligned with one faction, you can visit these locations.
All right, so that's important. This is something that we got a little bit confused on here.
One of them is the jump point station that you arrive.
Bigger and more involved than you would find in Stanton.
The areas are very aggressive looking. They're very spiky. There's an almost fractal nature to it.
The space stations are they're like factions, so you can see like the factions and branding on top of some of the stations, and then you can see like, oh, if like rough and ready, you're gonna have problems.
So
The rough and ready game.
from here, this is the only faction we heard about in this video, and I guess it was, you know, we probably should have assumed that they were just going to talk about them week over week, but they introduced Rough and Ready only when they were talking about the space stations, so it led some people to be a little bit like, okay, are they toning down how many factions actually have power in this system? But they're going to start to talk a little bit more in this episode about actual different factions, and they're not done. I don't think it's just going to be Citizens of Prosperity is what they named, Headhunters, Xenothreat, and Rough and Ready. There are still, I think, 2 more that are supposed to be in here that they haven't talked about, like, at all. They might be leaving them as a surprise. Maybe they'll talk about them more during this lead up to 4.0. But they're starting to lean more into the idea that people are actually going to be able to team up with factions and have some more reputation. That makes a pretty big difference in Pyro compared to Stanton. In Stanton, you could have factions with anybody, and nobody really cares that much. Like, it's not like if I'm teamed up with Crusader, then our court people are going to shoot me down when they see me.
Should you align with another faction, you can go to these other locations instead.
You've got a lot more to do there. So instead of going down,
Yeah, the Fire Rats is who you're thinking of.
going away again, you can go down, do a mission, do another mission, do a third mission, and then go to another outpost on the same planet, do some missions there.
Okay, that's the most important thing they've said all year, gameplay-wise. This is, like, how many people have talked to people and heard somebody say that, like, quantum travel is a time sink. Going places is a time sink. I hate how far I have to fly to do anything. This one statement about the fact that you can do multiple missions at an outpost is huge. That's just the beginning of being able to be like, okay, screw flying from planet to planet, screw flying out to the moon to do missions. If anything, this kind of makes it sound like you'll be able to get missions, maybe not physically at the outpost, but you'll at least be able to accept missions that are all taking place wholly in that outpost and the areas around it. And we'll talk about, actually, we don't even have to wait to talk about that. And that's something that they talked about here at CitizenCon last year.
You could counter an outlaw attack from a neighboring outpost between. Now, as a player, it will mean a lot more to explore and do at any single individual location, with a localized and personal feeling mission types that might see you moving around a single settlement to complete objectives, or doing short hop missions between clusters of settlements on a single planet. So you might head up to a ridge to repair some wind turbines. You could counter an outlaw attack from a neighboring outpost, or on the opposite side, you might be stealing or destroying vehicles for the criminal gang that you're working for. But in the art department, we always say, show, don't tell. So let's stop looking at slides and let's have a look at some of the locations.
So that's kind of what they were getting at during CitizenCon. And let's listen more to what they have to say about it.
Doing a mission, flying away again, you can go down, do a mission, do another mission, do a third mission, and then go to another outpost on the same planet, do some missions there. You have a much more involved experience.
So let's look at some of the places you'll be visiting. So farmsteads are a small slice of life within the Pyro star system to get you in.
All right, this is exciting to see. The UI in these ships looks way more understandable with these new MFDs, and they've taken long enough to do them. You guys want to see the first time they showed us MFDs they wanted to rework? Let me make sure I'm doing okay on time here. Oh my lordy. How far back can we go? I'm pretty sure they were showing, yeah, this is 2020. 2020. Look at the style they were kind of working on for ages. It looked good. Sleek, looks nice, but I think they've done a good job of readability with these new ones. I'm not an MFD expert, so I can't say that for sure, and I'm pretty sure I have to use this in the game to figure out if it actually fits what it's trying to do. But like the shapes are pretty big, the icons are pretty understandable. I like up here that you can see your components, damaged, error, critical, which means that yes, in even these smaller ships, you will have to pay attention to what's going on with your components. I don't think it'll be as big a deal as with the bigger ships. But all this looks a lot more readable than what we have right now, which is really nice. I see you in chat. Until it's fully released, Pyro is just lawless. Stanton can't change my mind. But that is pretty much true. I mean, Pyro at its core is another star system with outlaws. With outlaws. And at the end of the day, you can describe it like that. But then it's like, okay, well, who are the factions? What are the rules of those factions? What are the locations of those factions? Like you could just call it Lawless Stanton. I don't blame you for that. But it's the details that make the difference.
Introduced to what it's like to live there.
Landing complete.
There are places to gather harvestables. Places to complete your missions. And ultimate...
Can we just... Why is the guy in the jail cell? Why does he have a mobi-glass? Oh, God. All right, that's bait, Castiel.
Your missions. And ultimately, your first introduction to how people live in the Pyro star system.
Farms are probably one of my favorite ones, just because I really like the vibe of them.
Is the closest thing to a home feeling I think you'll find in Pyro. You feel like there's a smaller community living here.
There's a lot more fields of crops, there's a lot more greenhouses.
So they do have this stuff in the derelict outposts, we can see here. They worked on this stuff quite a bit in... They showed us this last year. Settlers of Stanton.
Myself building a nice little town in there that's nice and pretty.
The funny thing is this is like a ghost town in the ISC.
Protected. It has these little half barricaded walls made out of lumber, and it has all these drapes, these fabrics, these tarps that are playing in the wind. We have these old windmills that are in the background with fields of crops that they grew, but also it's a bit of like overgrown vegetation at the same time because it's not like lined up perfectly. It's just like this little savage garden that you can pick some berries to survive or whatever. You have these big.
So farms aren't that much different from what we've seen in Stanton already.
Grow stuff. You can also use these as harvestables. The player can go visit the greenhouses and just pick some things and add it to his inventory.
But they definitely didn't tie these locations in with missions, which was something that they did get better at for a while, but they still have kind of dropped the ball on with some of their locations.
We've got these like grub farm greenhouses, which are really cool as well. They tend to be in a lot more open, plain-like areas, big fields of crops around them.
There is things to do, there's things to harvest, but it's also just the vegetation that kind of sits on a lot of the desolate landscapes that we have in Pyro. Give you a little bit of this mini feeling of like a little oasis.
There's one in particular on Pyro 2 that's really nice and has this really nice vibe, that kind of like lazy windmill circling in the breeze on a plain that's just like almost featureless apart from these few buildings on it.
What we really need are mission givers at these locations. We need NPCs that can start to hand out tasks again and not just mobi-glass contracts all the time.
Especially at sunset, like really gives an amazing vibe of like these people live in the ass end.
Good evening, Mihai.
But are really trying to do their best to survive.
There are going to be some goods that are only grown in Pyro because of its unique star system that can be shipped back to Stanton.
Okay, so that's a good detail. The idea that like we really need that. We really need commodities that are only available to get in Pyro that you can then run cargo transport back to Stanton. The only people who want to go to Pyro can't just be people who are looking for a dangerous time. We need to have valuables that people have to adventure into Pyro for in order to bring back to Stanton and sell in Civilization. So that does a good job of helping to separate, or rather to mix the different groups of people. Obviously, those people who are explorers or cargo haulers who are coming to pick up those unique commodities are then also hiring escorts, creating more gameplay in that sense too. Hopefully we see some minerals too. They didn't say anything about that here, which is a bummer. But hopefully we see some minerals that are maybe exclusive to some of the caves in Pyro. Maybe there are minerals that are formed because of the solar pulses that go through the system and have created different types of elemental combinations and stuff like that. But they haven't talked about that yet, so we'll see.
We have a whole bunch of new mission types that you'll be able to do there. Then they're more geared around repairing pieces of machinery. We have what we call charge drain technology coming over from Squadron, which enables you to transfer an electrical charge from one component to another. So you can like jumpstart a generator, for example.
Now that's great. I know some people have problems with the lasers. This is fantastic because this is starting to build engineering into the ground locations, into bases. It's giving us something more to do that's not combat, looting, or mining related. Like, this is actually come to a base, talk to a person. This is just like the base mission, right? But I was just saying they need mission givers. Wouldn't it be great to show up at a base, go to the local tavern and be like, hey, what's going on around here? And systemically, those people can understand maybe there was an attack recently that took out some defenses or a turret. Maybe there's a radio station up on a mountain that for some reason has gone out. You know, it could be artificial, whatever. But they're able to dish out these little tasks that you can do down at a settlement instead of giving you some majestic, crazy mission like going off into another moon and killing a whole base full of people. These are nice tasks rather than just missions and contracts. And I think Star Citizen needs more of that in small locations. I hope that they bring this back to cities pretty soon. It's something that they showed us during this. Like, this is basically the same thing here, right? You're just hanging out in a city, and you're running a little repair mission inside of a city in a landing zone. You don't have to leave the city. You don't have to go anywhere else. You can just chill in the city and have some fun and do something that's a little bit different. Slow it down a little bit. Change the pace. I love that. As an engineer, can I explain why you would jumpstart a generator? Because it's fun. I mean, I'll say this. During one of my projects as a young engineer, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but they told us to just pick a project to do over the summer. So I decided to try and make a Faraday cage. And technically I had to jumpstart that to make it work. Like, it wasn't like I just set it up and it worked. I had to get the magnet spinning inside the copper coils. So, you know, something like that. Totally mundane, totally boring, totally engineering. Engineering is more complicated than it needs to be, you know? Just kick it. Just kick the machine, it'll turn on. Suddenly feel like Pyro isn't going to be so desolate in Wild West, and the need for carriers and refueling ships still not going to be needed by players. Oh, I think we'll definitely need refueling ships. Because you still can't get refueling if... Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe they won't reputation restrict the refueling, but... I think we'll still need refueling ships. I hope we'll still need refueling ships. That is a good point, though. They originally said that we needed refueling for Pyro, right? Or at least that was one of the excuses they had. I think if we look up refuel... how do you spell refuel? And repair. Star Citizen. Man, I can't type today. And go back to their calling all devs.
Find a guy in need. Find a guy that has run out of fuel, didn't check his fuel meter, and made a made a bit of a mistake. We're foreseeing this will be much more of a problem once Pyro kicks in, because...
Okay, that's not a coincidence. I was looking into this a few days ago because I want to make a video about refueling in Pyro, but it's nice that the time was right there. They have kind of made it seem like it was supposed to be a bigger thing for here, and we haven't really seen any updates on fuel, so I see where you're coming from. Hopefully they still mix it up. What's up, Thaddeus?
There's scope for much more gathering type of missions, like going out into the field, collecting crops. There's a big focus on non-combat at a place like a farm.
Next, let's talk about scrapyards.
Hey, Diz. How you doing?
Scrapyards are one of the few locations within the Pyro star system where you can actually service your ship that is not on space stations or LEOs.
We'll have more scrap in a scrapyard, which makes a lot of sense, but we've got the towering cranes with derelict spaceships in there, the skeletons of spaceships being pulled apart.
And we can see that there is a certain order to things where things get disassembled and moved around, and where your aircrafts are getting refueled and repaired. There will be little shops as well to kind of get you on the way for your journey.
And we've got these large landing pits in all the scrapyards that are unique to the scrapyards, which are the big sort of sunken pits for repairing, rearming, refueling. They kind of bring that kind of unique, okay, this is a scrapyard because I know that there's a landing pit here, and they're the only types of outposts that have those.
Landing complete.
Here, you're able to interact with Chrysler services, refuel your ship, repair your ship, even rearm your ship as well.
See, that's weird. I know it's not super high priority, but to set Pyro apart, I really feel like, there's not just Pyro, places that aren't on the beaten path, that aren't associated with CryAstro or with a government entity, I feel like you should have a different way of getting the fuel and stuff. At the very least, you should have to go over to like some kiosk and select this stuff. Getting it from your mobiGlas makes it feel pretty high tech for what they're trying to make it look like it is. I know, it's the 2900s, but let's get a little world building, huh?
In addition to servicing your ship, you can also service the scrapyard itself. You've got to use your charge and drain tools to be able to repair pipes, repair canisters, any faults in machinery, etc.
It's very much about taking things apart and organizing them and shipping them off again.
But unlike the landing zones within the Stanton system, there is no air traffic controller. There is nobody to filter out where you can go.
At least there's that.
Choose a parking space, you land there, you service your ship, and you must fly out.
That sounds like chaos, that you just land there. How many people are just going to leave their ships in this space, and then you're going to have to like find a way to tractor beam it out of the way? Oh, that sounds like it's going to be rough, actually.
The new mission type that we have is salvaging, but in first person. So you don't need to be in a ship. It will be something that you can do on foot. So salvaging all the various panels which have turned up at the scrapyards in order to process them. Another piece of non-combat gameplay at scrapyards might be repairing machinery. We have a system which uses the resource network and engages it in missions. So you will be able to, for example, if there's a broken piece of machinery, you'll be able to find a working piece of machinery, rip components and fuses and parts out of that, apply it to the broken one, and make that run instead. But
I do wonder why that's not what they're using for the engineering missions that they're showing with the lasers. Like when you have to repair something, I hope that they're mixing and matching that, and it's not just like, oh, this is mission-based, and then this is more free play-based. It'd be nice to have to work physically with fuses in order to repair things around the base and not just like small components like this.
Out of that, apply it to the broken one and make that run instead. But of course, you've broken the first machine by doing that.
Without any landing zones in the Pyro star system, we're using scrapyards to be able to help service your ships so that you can navigate to other locations on the planet, as well as get back up into space as well. But the largest concentration of player activity is going to be happening at the trade posts.
This is such a beautiful freaking scene.
Going to be dealing with trade and commodity, organizing themselves between different.
This looks kind of like the
trade and commodity.
Kind of like the frontier themed town in Starfield a little bit. Reminds me of that.
Yeah. Organizing themselves between different groups in order to purchase different food, water, ship weapons, ship components, armor, grenades, med pens, whatever, you name it, it can be found and sold here.
They focus quite heavily on hauling, delivery, and shuttling goods around.
Trader posts are organized by several different factions within the Pyro star system. At these different locations, you might find different inventory, different perks, different goods. So if you're aligned with Citizens for Prosperity, you might visit locations such as Jackson Swap on Pyro 2, or Conard View on Pyro 6.
I wonder if they changed the faction from Citizens for Pyro to Citizens for Prosperity. Wonder if that means they're changing the backstory of them, because they originally were kind of like not a great group. They were just trying to bring the group back in under the UEE. And I wonder if that's still the vibe that they're going for. Why they went with a name change. This all makes me a little nervous, not gonna lie. The trading posts, as great as it is to have these kinds of locations, they almost feel like band-aids to say, oh, hey, normal players, you can still go and do all the things that you expect in Pyro. Like, it should be more limited. The way they're talking about it sounds like they're still going to have tons and tons of supplies. They're just, scattered in different places and leaning on the side of a wall, and you have to pick it up off of a grating instead of from a store. Like, I want to know that Pyro is suffering from the fact that it's not a main trade route kind of system. I want there to be shortages so that we can actually have a reason to ship guns and stuff into Pyro. Like, there should be pressure on this system to call for cargo haulers to bring in things that are legitimately hard to find. Water, food, medical supplies, ammunition. The kind of stuff that you're not normally getting. Yeah, you would need a real economy for that, but like, this is setting up for them to, when there is a real economy, not be able to go back. How crazy do people go when Star Citizen introduces something as kind of like a holdover, as just sort of a, hang on, this is just going to be here for now, and then we're going to change it later. When they change it later, the player base goes buck fucking wild. Look at what's happening with inventories. Local inventories were always just like a temporary holdover, right? Maybe they should have never done them, because look at how much of a problem it's causing for the way people are receiving the actual physicalized cargo and inventory system. If this is something that's gonna be just kind of, it's easy to get stuff in Pyro right now, and then once the economy comes in later, they're like, oh yeah, so now there's shortages and like things you kind of have to actually do the work for that stuff to be there, then it gets messy. And even then, we're only 10% of the workforce bringing in stuff to the system, so that wouldn't even really matter that much. I do hope that when it comes to the way that Pyro has supplies and has all of their stuff and works their missions and everything, it makes sense for what Pyro is supposed to be. Otherwise, then, yeah, doesn't it just feel kind of like a reskinned Stanton? You think the Citizens for Pyro to Citizens for Prosperity feels like a PR name change in universe? Maybe. So CIG creates non-combat content but puts it in the middle of a PvP meat grinder. I mean, it's not a PvP meat grinder. It's a dangerous system for sure, but PvP is not the only type of combat. I think maybe we only think of PvP when we think of combat because NPCs aren't really that great yet. But it's not just PvP. If anything, most of the danger you'll run into in this system is going to be from NPCs. From ships just hanging out, pirates from factions that you're not aligned with, stuff like that. And even then, I do think that depending on what reputation you have, these places will be safer for you. But Pyro is freaking huge. Absolutely massive. Should be able to stay away from people for the most part if you're not jumping on the trade lanes. Who do I think will be supplying these places? Players? Somewhat. Building a headcanon never pans out. I'm not building, I mean, it's kind of a headcanon. It's kind of it's a hope. I hope that what they're telling us here isn't necessarily that everything is going to be included, even though it sounds like that.
different food, water, ship weapons, ship components, armor, grenades, med pens, whatever, you name it, it can be found and sold here.
They focus quite heavily on hauling, delivery, and shuttling goods around.
Trader posts are organized by several different factions within the Pyro star system. At these different locations, you might find different inventory, different perks, different goods. So if you're aligned with Citizens for Prosperity, you might visit locations such as Jackson Swap on Pyro 2 or Conard View on Pyro 6. Conard View is in a very cold location that's very inhospitable, but people still need to be able to service and trade and do things around this planet. You can find different goods, different resources there, all being sold at this location. As Conard View is sheltered within a crater, it is also a safer location away from other headhunter gangs nearby, so you've got fewer people competing for your wares or trying to pirate from you either. Jackson Swamp is sheltered between these two different cliff bluffs, offering them lots of protection. And through there, we went for a spaghetti western style main thoroughfare with lots of different landing pads around. And because it's...
Is that the free... Okay, I listened to this on my phone the first time I watched it. That was the tardigrade, no, what's it called? The thing from the Big Benny's vending machine flying through the air.
Main thoroughfare with lots of different landing pads around. And because it's well established, it's got some nice defensive measures so that it can't be immediately attacked by any rogue factions within Pyro.
TARDIS.
You see in Jackson Swap, it's a hard environment that these people live in. It's not an easy living.
Visually, it echoes like the rest of the sort of art style that we call the sort of frontier art style.
If we look at the buildings, we see that there's a lot of stucco elements, there's a lot of makeshift little knickknacks that people have.
I'll say this, the outposts in this system are so far beyond what we have in Stanton. It's not even funny. The Stanton outposts look so outdated now. I mean, we always knew that they were pretty temporary, but yikes. These are like full-on towns and settlements compared to what we have in Stanton.
People are living there. It's very makeshift. Rooms were built to have a certain purpose, but have lost that purpose many years ago.
There's still that sort of decorative, artisanal, craftsman-like elements in there as well, with the rough weave rugs and things like that. So we're trying to really like push that homesteading vibe in complete opposition to things like the space stations and Microtech, which up to now has been this very corporate, lots of metal, lots of angles, lots of edges, lots of sci-fi. This is supposed to soften off all those corners.
You as a player can land whatever size ship you have, purchase whatever size ship components and ship weapons you might want to have. You can visit the local warehouse or order any potential things that you might need to have, commodities, food, etc. Where anybody needs to be able to get something, purchase it, collect it. This is where all the players are going to be collecting. But maybe you align yourself with headhunters and you visit locations like Gono Steel and Golden Riviera. Gono Steel is a smaller outlaw trade post perched in Pyro 4's massive crater. It's there.
Nothing interactive. They just talked about interactive stuff at these outposts. What you talking about? It's literally these missions.
Squadron, which enables you to transfer an electrical charge from one component to another.
That's fairly interactive.
The sci-fi, this is supposed to soften off all those corners.
You as a player can land whatever size ship you have, purchase whatever size ship components and ship any potential, get something. But maybe you align yourself with headhunters and you visit locations like Gono Steel and Golden Riviera. Gono Steel is a smaller outlaw trade post perched in Pyro 4's massive crater. It's there as a stopgap between Pyro 3 and
somebody typing in the background.
Pyro 6, because there is not much landmass around Pyro 5. Pyro 5 is a gas giant, and yet.
Okay. Aren't there like 6 moons around Pyro 5? Am I having a little brain fart? Yeah, there's like a ton of moons around Pyro 5. So I wonder why they wouldn't set up on a moon around Pyro 5 and instead insist on a jump between 4 and 6. You hope Stanton gets a lot of love from the tech developed from and lessons learned from Pyro. I do think that. I think that's going to be the case for sure. They'll have to go back and do a lot more stuff. Not talking about missions. Oh, okay. Yeah, if you're not including the gameplay missions that they're adding, then yeah, it might not be as interactive as one would hope. Atmosphere, probably. Oh, okay, that's fair. So I wonder then, does that mean that every planet in the system has an atmosphere, breathable atmosphere? Oh, you're right. 4 is orbiting 5. It's like, it's kind of breaking up, yeah? Tectonic activity that resulted from this impact was quieted, a new atmosphere has formed. It's far from stable. It is a long, slow collision course with Pyro 5 and will one day either crash into it or break up into a ring. Huh.
You need to have a midway drop-off to get from Pyro 3 over to Pyro 6 on the far side, because Pyro's star system is far larger than Stanton. Golden Riviera is one of those sleazy towns which is just full of seedy people, absolutely taken over by the headhunters. They've butchered everything, they've changed how they want things to work. Trade posts are possibly selling slave pods, you can find other illegal goods, but it's just a central hub of like sleaziness.
Don't judge them.
It is still built out of this minimal things that are laying around. It's very a hodgepodge of different things that come together. What makes Golden Riviera different is that now a tornado just went through the entire place. It is absolute chaos. Bits and bobs are laying around, things have rusted, and you will find mattresses of where people have been sleeping in the weirdest corners. We can see that the people that have been living in the space have really outlived this location a little bit.
The idea is...
It's going to be hard for them to deal with the age of these systems. Pyro is like hundreds of years old. So everything should look old, you know? But then there's upkeep to be had. So it's like, why did these people not update their space, but the other factions did? Lore stuff. By the way, if you are a supporter, Twitch subscriber, YouTube channel member, Patreon member, we will be having our podcast after the cooking stream. So we're going to do this, then we're going to go make some Turkish meatballs together, me and Mrs. Tomato. We'll be raiding right into that to have some fun with that. And then in about, how long? 2.5 hours, I will be having the Astropub on my podcast. And for anybody who is a supporter, you can join us live on Discord. You can actually, I could drop the link for you right now in chat. So you can make sure to RSVP if you want, so you don't want to miss it. Or if you don't want to miss it. And we'll be talking Pyro. How is it different from Stanton? How is it different in terms of lore, in terms of gameplay, all that kind of stuff. So please join us. Should be good fun. 2 cooking streams in a week. Yeah, man. Yeah, we're eating twice a week. Can you believe it?
Is that these are once prosperous outposts that have since been like basically home invaded by the bad guys and taken over completely. So we use a lot of like more like fire and lots of spiked kind of like cladding and rusty metal elements just to give that kind of, I hesitate to say Mad Max.
Is that a hologram?
Kind of more apocalyptic.
Is that a hologram on top of that building?
That
oh yeah, I thought it was heat at first, but there's like a little hologram up there.
kind of, I hesitate spiked kind of completely. So we use a lot of like more like fire and lots of spiked kind of like cladding and rusty metal elements just to give that kind of, I hesitate to say Mad Max, but kind of that more apocalyptic vibe, I suppose.
Jackson Swap, even though it is very improvised, it has a certain structure underneath it.
See, this compared to the outposts, I guess we have derelict outposts in Stanton now, which they started showing off last year. Like this.
Like,
but this is, even this is just not really as, I mean, I don't know. There's definitely a difference there.
Chip that's
It's
nearby.
not as substantial.
Yeah, this
It's not actual structures or anything. It's just kind of thrown together. It still feels like just a little side location.
They're super quick and super.
You got some structure to it.
Greenhouses. We can have like hostile, and we can have also just social settlements now with a lot more assets to play with. My favorite settlement or outpost that we've created so far.
Like this is cool, and these are a good addition to Stanton. They man, you really need just more of the engineering and gameplay and stuff to be included in here. But compared to this is like an actual town. And I hope that they can have enough NPCs in this place. I hope server meshing allows them to have enough NPCs actually doing stuff around these locations to make them feel like a real populated town.
And Golden Riviera, just this structure is nearly gone. It is really chaos, anarchy that this place really embodies.
This dude looks out of freaking place. Jesus, man.
Coming to our locations should feel like they are encountering a whole new frontier where people feel a little bit on edge and they're curious about you, but they're also hesitant to meet you at the same time. There is no law, there is no jurisdiction, there is no protection.
Oh, is it? Was that Jared's character model? Oh yeah, I could see it. Okay.
At the same time, there is no law, there is no jurisdiction, there is no protection. There is just you and people trying to get by and live their lives.
So, what did we learn this week?
Live their
Something's glitching out over here in the background.
So, what did we learn this week? Well, hopefully that there's a whole lot more to Pyro than just being a jerk and destroying everything you see and touch. That while all the systemic gameplay systems of Stanton can be found there, Pyro arrives with a few new ones of its own. And that at launch, there are two primary factions that currently dominate much of Pyro's planetside. And your choice of allegiance...
Okay, so that's not good. That means that they're still planning the other factions. Well, this is speculation. That makes it sound like they're still planning the other factions, but they're not ready yet. Which, how are the fire rats not ready yet?
Factions that currently dominate much of Pyro's planetside. And your choice of allegiance will determine much about where you'll go and what you'll do with your time there.
But that's good.
And
that is good to hear, though.
Hey, do these two factions ever fight? Well, I'd say come back in 2 weeks to see not only how much they don't like each other, but how they both have to contend with the ongoing presence of Xenothreat as their neighbors. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared.
I hope that means supply shortages. I hope that means reasons for conflict between the groups. And yeah, so Fire Rat should definitely be a planet-side faction because they have some very particular beliefs about the surface of, I think, Pyro 2 or Pyro 3. So I would really want to know that there aren't just two planet-side factions in Pyro. But then he does also go on to say that players should be able to expect that your reputation is going to dictate where you go. So that's good. I mean, I hope that also counts for the salvage yards where you're getting refueled and repaired and stuff. I think that systems and services should be heavily restricted in Pyro. I don't want them to go around that. I really don't, because that's what creates, and I know it's a bit of a buzzword, but that's what creates the emergent gameplay. That's what means if it's hard as to get fuel in Pyro, that means that the people who have fuel get paid a ton more money to go and fuel people in Pyro. That means that we'll have more than just people who are trying to fight in Pyro. We'll have people who are trying to create spawn points for folks, people who are trying to create fuel for folks. We have people who are trying to deliver goods to folks. All those people get paid a lot more because it's more dangerous. Those people then getting paid more have more money to pay for escorts, creating a loop of gameplay. And if they skip over the fact that people still need other players or NPCs in ships to help them fuel and stuff, then we start to kind of lose the whole point of having a frontier system. So I hope that we hear more about that. I don't remember what the rest of their plans are for ISC. Anybody remember the schedule for ISC? I know Jared kind of leaked it. And the next one is about Ship Showdown. Yay. But after that is combat missions in Star Citizen, I think. And I'm gonna have to try. I'm just gonna use the Discord server to find this. Outlaw Gangs, no. It was on a Star Citizen Live, right? Oh, man. Here we go. Okay. So we got Pyro Space Station activities. Check. Fire, last week. Check. Pyro Social Experiences. That was this week. Check. Next week is Ship Showdown. Then Pyro Combat. It looks like the only other thing we have in terms of gameplay is an engineering inside Star Citizen. And I hope they don't just focus on ships for that. I hope they talk about outposts and space stations and stuff. Because that'd be disappointing. It doesn't look like they have anything really to say more about reputation or factions or anything. Man, I hope we get like a Star Citizen Live about it. It's the most important kind of details so far. Yeah, Gavin Rothery is going to be on ISC next week, right? Dude's all over the place. Fire Rats are fanatics, yes. Sounds like Pyro is a battle royale disguised in thin lore. It's basically the whole of Star Citizen, right? You don't like the fact they suggest you have to choose your faction because it implies you might not be able to see all the content depending on who you go for? I love that. I think that's exactly how it should be in a system like Pyro. I mean, that's probably how it should be in any system, right? If you decide to work for Ninetales in Stanton, then you probably shouldn't be getting the Crusader missions. If you decide to work with Blackjack, then you shouldn't be able to work with ArcCorp. If you go all in with Covalix, maybe Shubin is not that keen on working with you. Like, that's how you get differentiated gameplay. Otherwise, everybody gets the same exact experience, at least as far as the factions and lore goes. This what will separate this from other space games. It shouldn't be super easy to skip through star systems to get to the next. It should be a unique and different challenge every system. It definitely should be a very unique experience. Like, you should get to a system and not just want to go to the next one. You should want to be able to explore why that system is special. Hello, Armix. Armix. How you doing? Okay. So, from there, we don't have to go over this ISC. Let's go back to what they were saying about Pyro around end of last year, I think it was. Yeah, end of last year, here's what they were saying about Pyro. Just to get a little refresher and look at how they've changed over that time.
Hey, do you want some noodles? Come and enjoy some noodles.
Who wants some noodles?
These are the best noodles ever.
That guy did not
Come
match
and
that
enjoy
voice.
Some noodles.
Who wants some noodles?
Maybe.
These are the best noodles ever. No one else has done noodles like
Didn't
this.
look excited enough.
Noodles.
Best noodles around, right here.
I don't want any more noodles for as long as I live. Thank you. That's very kind of you to ask.
What's up with Pyro and noodles?
Again.
Noodles.
And again.
Who wants noodles?
And again.
Ew. Looked like noodles had gone through a dishwasher first.
Pyro Playground was really just a snapshot of where we're at in the process. We didn't want to release all of Pyro, so it was really just Pyro 1, 2, and 3.
We didn't have all of the content or features, but it was a pretty good chunk of it.
It contains a certain subset of locations to go visit, a certain subset of missions that we want players to partake in, and it's just a chance for players to experience a cross-section of where we're at currently with the Pyro system.
It allows us to have a look into the new, unique systems we've built for Pyro, things like the solar flare. Things that make...
I wonder how they've changed the solar flare since then. I bet you what they put in for the test that we did with Pyro the first time was a very rudimentary version of what they actually want it to look like. The version that they put in for... Where's the channel? Here. The version that... Nope, that's not it. The trailer, God, it was IAE 2022. Would have been this one.
Hey, did you see the last transmission?
Has anyone seen Jimmy?
Check out what it looks like in this video.
Jimmy. If you hadn't shown up when you did, I would have been dead. But if Bob and the crew hadn't swooped in, we'd both be ink spots on the ruined station pavement. I owe both of you big time.
Don't mention it. Now strap in, boys. It's a long way to the jump point. We need to get a crew out there.
Like an Apollo rescue team?
No, a camera crew.
Ah, yeah, you're right.
This is just the format change we need.
Plenty of time, Jim, for you and I to riff on ideas for next season, huh? And we could hit a couple of my favourite Pyro haunts on the way back. I could show you around, introduce you to some of the locals. Yeah, I still can't believe you managed to find...
Check this out.
Tracking my transmissions. Whoa.
It's like a wave that kind of... Oh man, but they get a little crazy with the effects here with the clouds. It's more of a wave, whereas what they did in the Pyro playground was kind of just like a blinding white light. And I'm wondering if they're gonna change that. Oh, it's not important to do. They don't have to do it. It's not gonna make or break the game. But clearly, since we saw Pyro last, they've changed a lot of stuff. So I'm thinking this probably has been updated a little bit as well.
Pyro feel more unique to Stanton.
Instead of us always showing players, we wanted players to be able to play it and see what we're seeing and test it out, and then also allow us to get one step closer to the actual release. The Tech Preview channel is a way for us...
Zoster, thank you for the sub, mate. Appreciate you. It's 16 months now, bro. Much love. Hope you're enjoying the stream.
Playing whatever is on live, plus this little snippet or shelf of content or feature that allows us to try it out and make sure that it works before we take it to larger audiences. A lot of times when we use just the PTU build, there's so many different layers of bugs and issues that we're trying to work through that a lot of times the feature that we're trying to highlight or to really get a lot of feedback on is behind all of these other things. So this allows us to test out just a very, very specific thing. When we put things on the Tech Preview channel, it'll never be permanent. It's really just a way for us to gather information. Or
I wish they'd use the preview channel more too.
And then from there, it will always be pulled down and then follow the proper pipeline, which would be going through PTU environment, then finally being released on live. When we've done demos in the past, there is a golden path, but with this, we wanted it to be like a golden sphere. If you wanted to do cargo or mining or salvaging or racing or piracy, whatever, there was something there for you.
The Pyro Playground gave players an opportunity to get a feel for several planets, Pyro 1, 2, and 3.
They do have lore names. Bloom, which is Pyro 3, and Monox, which is Pyro 2. And Pyro 1 itself doesn't have an official name because it's such a barren wasteland, so there's never really been any mining or industrial commercial enterprises on it.
Pyro is a lawless system, so
yet there are outposts on it.
We've got some big differentiating factors, like Stanton should feel almost like a business park because of all the different corporations that it has there, versus Pyro should just feel completely lawless.
I really enjoy that feeling that we are in a system that is completely different from Stanton. You feel less protected, you feel more vulnerable. It becomes much more about careful planning, but there's also that freedom there as well, so you're free of consequences for a lot of your actions. So it becomes more of a free-for-all playground, and I think as time moves on...
See, I think that's saying things like that is where they've gotten it into people's head that it's actual free-for-all. And I'm glad they've started to talk more about the reputation that you can get with different factions to emphasize that it's not actually a free-for-all and there are consequences for your actions. But I don't know why they published things where they literally said there aren't consequences, because there are. And we all are aware of that now. Good day, Danny. How you doing? Paul, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, and I think it is a little bit... I would like to hear more about how the supply and trade works in this system, because talking about it from the sense that you can just get a whole bunch of stuff and buy things pretty easily is not filling us in on how the economy works and how supply and demand actually works in this system.
You'll see certain people gravitate towards that and certain people move away from it.
The interiors of the Pyro station were designed with modularity in mind, which means each rooms can be separately transformed into either a rundown or an abandoned state. So this gives more opportunity for gameplays and new atmospheres for the players.
Just having a new skybox, just having a new starfield, just having new colorscapes for the spacescaping, etc., I think is really refreshing to see.
From a content standpoint, we can take a lot of the stuff that we've done on Stanton already and actually adjust it and get it ready for Pyro pretty quickly, just because we've already built the foundation of it.
So a lot of it was a little bit more about sightseeing the locations. There's still a lot of mission and interactability content to put into the locations, but there were certainly missions to be done, missions that would drive the player to them.
So the player could mine, they could salvage, they could do cargo runs, they could do delivery, they could do all sorts of different missions. Go and kill an Idris. You could go and do a bombing run on an outpost.
There was a couple of new missions, such as destroy the fuel tank mission.
Its actual name is Fuel to the Fire, that sees you destroying these massive gas cylinders that you can do with ship weapons or by dropping a bomb.
See, none of this, now this is last year, so they didn't have things as advanced as they did, but even in the ISC episode we watched earlier in this deep dive, not really anything they've said has pointed out to me specifically why I would want to go and do that stuff in Pyro, as you're saying in chat. The only thing they said that made me think, okay, this sounds like it might be worth doing, is that there are harvestables in the system that you can't get in Stanton. That's it. But where else is that unique supply coming from? Where are the unique minables? Where is the salvage material that is so old it gets me more money to sell or something? The relics that nobody has found for hundreds of years, so I want to go and do some sort of exploration out there. They're missing that. And I think they missed that in this episode too. This episode has plenty of interesting stuff in it, but it's still not quite hitting the mark for why other people would want to go into the system for these things, other than just a new area and some reputation with unique factions.
We have a mission which are two sort of parts of a similar mission type, but offer very different experiences.
These are all just different things we wanted the players to be able to experience and to, again, make things feel different than what it does in Stanton.
While I was involved in the development, you only get involved in certain aspects, so you don't see it all as a whole. So when we did internal playthroughs and I hopped on with some members of my team, we decided we was going to play one of the missions that we hadn't played. The mission was amazing, it was very atmospheric. The AI were reactive, we barely got out alive. And then we had this warning of a solar flare, and we didn't know what this was, so we was like, oh, this is cool. So we stood on the ground and stared at the sun, wondering what it was, because I believed and I had told my team that it was more of an EMP, completely forgetting that it's more of a deadly dose of radiation. When the solar flare happened, everybody on my team fell to the floor, instantly dying with an intense hit of radiation. And it was an amazing experience.
it affects the players in various ways. We're hoping probably to do some changes to that with how it affects the AI as well, and how that will affect the player in general, what they have to do to protect themselves.
The solar flare on the floor was tuned up a little bit more just because we wanted everybody to experience it at least once. In the future, we'll do adjustments so that it's not quite as annoying as it currently is.
Yeah, I think there's more that they're going to do with that in between what we saw before and now. Hello, Elliot. Tempest, good to see you. Glad you enjoyed the content.
We basically taking consumables and props to the next level. As a team, Interactables took charge of creating all the new...
Hey, senior citizen, never feel too easily entertained. All right, I'm very easily entertained as well. The things that I'm saying about this are trying to dive to the core of what this system is. I'm not exactly talking about how I'm going to receive it when it's out. I'm sure I'm going to be all around Pyro doing things, even if it's not worth the time. But from a gameplay standpoint, I'm also trying to be conscious of the macro reception of all of this. You know, of how this will shift the player base overall, not just my own interests and stuff like that. Hey, Primogen. Good to see you. To you, it sounded in the beginning that Pyro will be a hardcore PvP place, so you were like, yeah, nah. Now it seems like something really close to Stanton, and you're like, nah, nothing that different. I think the idea that it was going to be a hardcore PvP place was very miscommunicated. And it was, maybe it was lines like this one in the early episode here about not having consequences for your actions. But from the first time I ever heard about Pyro, I was led to believe that it would not be without consequences, that there were gangs there that you can't be a gang. This is like how cartels work, right? You can't be a gang and own territory and let people do whatever the they want when they're there. If somebody is messing with your business, with your land, with your people, you have to go and find them and kill them or imprison them. That's how I always understood Pyro to be. They aren't talking as much about that though right now though, so I'm not sure how widespread that's going to be, how they're going to enforce their own rules and stuff like that. But the scarcity should make it more interesting, and that's also not something they're talking about a ton.
Food items that you've seen. Basically, we had to reinvent the way props have always been done. We've had to create kind of a new style, which is the improvised style, because everything in Pyro is, you know, scrap, it's trash, it's things that have been repurposed. We didn't have any of that stuff, so we had to do a lot of development, had to do a lot of prototyping on what would work. We made a lot of kits, so it's all brand new stuff that we've had to create to fit this new aesthetic. One of the things we thought would be really, really amazing to do was harvestables, consumables that actually move. So originally we created the stone bug, which was like a small kind of experiment on a creature that animates, you know. But we wanted to take it to the next level and create something disgusting. We basically created a bunch of grubs that you can eat, and also, yeah, you can find these grubs, you know, around in the vents and stuff.
Oh,
if you
God.
run around Checkmate Station or any of the stations, that you can actually find them.
I mean, bro, that's like, I'm not going to eat a chicken cutlet if I find it in the vent of my local office building.
Some tasty sustenance. Just watching people do food reviews about grubs is awesome.
MGL, thank you for the bits, man. I hope you're having a good time.
Now they'll be able to experience like new mission gameplay and new locations like planet, outposts, or even Pyro stations. When a player just travels to this location, it can be seen from up close, but as well from afar. So yeah, every details really counts, like decals, textures, or even geometry. So we had to make sure that there was a visual consistency. It was kind of a challenge because it was kind of a large-scale station, and we had to make sure that every details really matters. You can access the station through multiple locations, so it depends for where you come. But some areas can be completely like in a rundown state, and some others can be like completely abandoned.
These are stations that are decommissioned. These are stations that are, you know, run down and broken. You know, the atmospheric controls don't work. You know, the trash compactors and the janitorial stuff. None of that's going to be working, so we needed to really kind of demo and show that off, right?
To really like make the stations in Pyro really shine and be completely the opposite of Stanton, we implemented like new parts, like the damaged parts that you can see on the exterior, and they are fulfilled with a lot of asteroids and debris all around.
The Pyro gangs are not going to be worrying about where the trash is going. They're just going to be shoving it in a corner and it being done with. So a lot of the props exploration with trash was building massive trash bags and enabling the environment artists to then go and place them and create these massive like trash piles in the corners of stations, which is really awesome.
With the rundown environments, you'll feel like everything is completely destroyed, falling apart, but still kind of occupied by the AIs. Rather than in the abandoned, there's like less movements. It's just like a space for you to make discoveries and explore the stations.
Players were able to explore the space stations, explore all the alternative pathing within the space stations, but go to all the derelict outposts, solve some of the puzzles, have combat in the outposts as well.
So yeah, you can really feel this sense of danger coming from Pyro.
It's not we're building a tech preview or anything like that. We're just building Pyro. And so everything that you're experiencing on the tech preview channel is what Pyro will become. There might be slight modifications from there, but the outposts where they're placed, the space stations where they're placed, what encompasses all of those stations and content is what Pyro will be. All we did was we just held back 4, 5, and 6. And it really was just making sure that it feels like our live product.
Which we can see now they have actually changed quite a bit of it since then. I don't know. I feel like they're stuck in this awkward place where they don't have enough gameplay to differentiate Pyro where it's supposed to be. And this is hopium, okay? I'm squarely in the hopium camp right now. I'm hoping that server meshing does allow them to focus more on bolstering the systems that let Pyro be different. That is, the NPCs and AI, the way they react and act around as their faction, as their reputations, the ability for them to actually create an economy with supply and demand, with items shortages, with commodity shortages. Like, there's a lot that should go into Pyro to make it feel more frontier. And so far, it feels like it's mainly art that's making it feel frontier. Definitely less space stations than Stanton, that's for sure, in a much bigger system. So we will be much more kind of lonely and limited from services. And that does make things interesting. But when you do get to those space stations or those outposts, it sounds like they're still going to be very able to supply you with the things that you need. So we'll have to see how the reputation you have interacts with that availability and how they do actually supply these locations past what they're just saying in like a 13-minute ISC. I understand they don't have a ton of time to explain it here, but I'm crossing my fingers that they have a Star Citizen Live that gets a little bit more into what the actual economic and commodity and supply state of Pyro is past what they've said so far.
So what happens going forward is that we'll continue to harden and continue to get ready for the actual real release of Pyro and get all of the content in and make sure that it's working with all of the different AI aspects or systems that are coming online and do more tuning passes. And then there's the actual technical aspects of getting server meshing ready and in order to make sure that it's the best experience when we actually do the full release of 4.0.
A lot of the things that we know we still have to work on is performance, particularly optimization and performance for the locations. There's a lot of content streaming in and out all at once, particularly at ship speeds when you fly super fast over an outpost. And we're really, really wanting to expand the AI experience within each outpost so that it's more of a fuller seeming. People are doing logical things in these outposts and it's not just lots of people wandering around.
With Pyro being an unlawful system, a lot of people have been experiencing spawn camping, ganking, however you want to phrase it. It's not fun, but it is a part of being in an unlawful system. There are a few sort of key puzzle pieces we are missing to sort of have the intended experience there, which we need AI to be there and we need them to be reactive so they can see what you're doing and be able to help the players who are just trying to get out.
Yeah.
You also need reputation.
Reputation really matters. You don't have the UEE doing any kind of patrols.
If someone is sat there ganking people coming out, it get to the point where Rough and Ready are that sick in you, you're not allowed at their stations anymore. You're not allowed to refuel there, land there, rearm. You go anywhere near it and they will shoot you down.
So that's the kind of details we need to hear more of right there.
Gain and lose reputation with the gangs, and they own various locations.
Are you going to be able to go to this station because you've destroyed an entire settlement where Rough and Ready work? You know, you kill this person. How's that going to affect your long-term reputation?
What you do really impacts where you can go and people's response to you.
These kind of things will not stop that gameplay, but will heavily discourage it.
Basically, the goal is that it does feel like a lawless experience compared to Stanton.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned...
So yeah, that's mainly what we have so far. And in this video, they talked a little bit more about... did they talk about the reputation here? I think that was mainly in... was it Destination Adventure where they talked about that more? Let's see, hold on. No, I'm pretty sure it was the one I was just in. Right? Living on the Edge. Did they not have reputation talks in here somewhere? There it is. Okay, let's see what they have to say about it here. Just a little refresher. I don't know if Todd Pappy went directly to another company, but he did end up leaving Star Citizen.
Khan touched on reputation earlier. Let's see how that is applied to the stations. So how does the reputation gate in the entry deck affect gameplay? What happens if we have good reputation? So if you had good reputation, you could go straight through. This is no fuss, and it's the quickest way to maneuver through the station. However, you've got to put the time and the effort in to get to this point. What happens if you neutral reputation? So you might be waved through, maybe you have to pay a bribe, and you don't want to pay, so you're going to have to find an alternate pathing. Or you're going to have to build up your reputation. If you have bad reputation, and for all you naughty ones out there, I know some of you exist, this applies to you. In short, you're going to have a tough time, but you have options. So stealth via other pathways might be one of those options. You build your reputation up from scratch, or you could probably fight. Let's focus on those alternate pathways. The modules in the station are broken up into several traversal areas. As with the other location archetypes, we define these spaces as secondary or tertiary routes, as opposed to the more official primary paths. Most modules are interconnected with vents and maintenance shafts. These reward the players with infiltration and exploration paths, as well as potential loot. So what alternative routes exist to enter this, access the station?
So this stuff is actually wildly different from what we have in Stanton. I think the space stations come off as more different from Stanton than the outposts and groundside stuff does at this point. They will be doing findable jump points that you could find from exploration, but that's not coming with 4.0.
The station through multiple EVA points on the exterior. It gives you the choice on how to tackle missions and reputation issues. These alternative entries allow the player to circumvent the ATC loop completely. Useful for when your reputation with the owners would normally prevent you from going through more official ways. These server spaces that provide content aligned or against the owners of the station. The maintenance hatch access points are a new common sublocation to the stations. The stations are planned to house maintenance areas that increase the interconnection between all the different sub-areas of the station.
All right, so we saw these in here. Mainly they're talking about doing them in the asteroid clusters areas with these EVA entrances.
And we're carving these locations into it. And we're really providing a lot of variety in the gameplay in a form factor space.
Essentially, we're utilizing the station interior set that we have created, and we're wrapping them around an asteroid, a big asteroid that allows us to be a lot more versatile with the kit that we have and create some interesting layouts for you.
Asteroid base gives us the opportunity to create missions where you can be in space and you have to go on the
Oh, Sigelian, dude, thank you for the raid, man. Appreciate you coming in here. Right before we get into our cooking stream, too. We're about to start making some Turkish meatballs if you guys are interested in that. It's really yummy stuff. Although, I say that, it's not like you'll be able to eat it, unfortunately.
You could be engaging enemies. Cool about them is we can have multiple routes into these locations. So
welcome in, Sigelian crew. How you guys doing today?
Through a vent hatch, you could find your way in through a hangar. You could go straight through the front door, but there's a lot of room for exploration, finding loot that's been hidden there with loot crates, and find certain items that are important for you that you want to use to progress through Pyro, things that you haven't seen before in Stanton.
So that's a little bit of what they were talking about back in this.
They act as alternative pathways the player can take to traverse from the entrance area to the Galleria, for example. Now let's have a look at our main social space. The market. A central location for the controlling faction, it houses all their nefarious activities. You can participate in their endeavors if you have the right rep. Let's have a look at some of those key features.
So we don't have any reputation-linked access points in Stanton yet. I think we will at some point, but there's a lot more opportunity for them to do it in this, since these aren't governments, these are gangs, and they can restrict a lot more access to different locations. And I think that's something that will always be more unique to Pyro than it is to Stanton. And hopefully something that really does set it apart when you finally get there. Again, the most important thing to know about Pyro is reputation. And they've been a little bit mum about it. I hope that we get a Star Citizen live about it. When we do, you know, we're going to dive real hard into that and talk about it a lot on one of these streams. But until then, we still have just a lot of questions to ask and things to wonder about how this is all going to work. But for me, folks, that is it for today. Like I said, it wasn't going to be a super long look at the at Pyro, but I hope you got a little bit more insight into what they have planned for it and what they're doing. If you ordered some Turkish meatballs from us today, how long would you have to wait for delivery? Probably too long for them to still be good when they get to you. I would assume, I would guess. But yeah, we'll keep touching on this. This is just the most recent preview on Pyro. We are on the road to Pyro Season 6. But there's still more to go. I'm hoping they get it in this year. Still not really sure about a timeline on when 4.0 is going to reach us, but they're still saying that it's going to be this year, so we'll see. Either way, I hope that they talk a little bit more about it as we get closer and closer, and hopefully we can hear... God, I'm really hoping to get a Star Citizen live on this, and we don't have to wait the whole time to figure it out for ourselves when the game drops. Either way though, hope you got some good information here. Hope you all had a good time, got to learn something a little new. I'm going to send you all on over to the cooking side of this stream now, and I will be right over there. It's not live yet, is it? I don't see it live yet. Let's see.
I am live and alive.
Why isn't it popping up for me?
Maybe it doesn't like. It's Mrs. Tomato.
There we go. Oh. It popped up for a second there. There we go. I think my spelling is just terrible. Okay, folks. I'm going to send you over to the other side of this stream. And we will be getting started on cooking together some Turkish meatballs, having some chat. We can talk more about this if you guys want. You can ask any questions you'd like. Whatever it is you want to talk about. It's really just a chance for all of us to hang out, chill, have a good time, and learn a little more about each other. I'm dropping the link for you in the YouTube chat if any of you want to join us. We're still working on getting the YouTube channel up to the point where we can stream over there. So you'll have to join us on Twitch for it right now. But if you do, extra cookies for you. Thank you everybody for being here. Hope you enjoyed today. I'll see you tomorrow for some streamy streams, and then I'm going to be going on to Croncy's channel for some D&D. And again, if you are a supporter, please come join the podcast live in 2 hours. Me and Astropub will be talking all about Pyro and whether or not it actually is different. Thanks again for coming, folks. I'll see you all in a minute. Bye.